who live in Bailey's Crossroads, this probably won't be such a pleasant journey back, but if we can pinpoint where some of those areas were, it's even more important to show all the progress that has happened, but it didn't just happen. It happened because people who lived in the area, families who lived in the area, who wanted to raise their children here, said, we don't want to live this way anymore. We want to have an improved community. And you see what we have now, today. But I imagine there are still some of those buildings may still stand, or you may remember where they were. So I'm really anxious to have you go over this and put little stickies on it and tell us where it is, because those are the kind of serendipitous finds that really document. Nobody went out to document it for history. They went out to look at it because it was a health department requirement. So that's the kind of exciting stuff. Every once in a while, you turn up something and you find out that it really does have a great deal to do with a particular community within the broader community. And so I'm sorry I'm late, but I'm really glad that I was able to share a little bit with you. And in history, we're a little blip. But when we look at our community, especially in Mason District, our neighborhoods, well, not Springdale is an older neighborhood. Certainly, this shows it's quite old. But most of our suburbs, our subdivisions, are now about 50 years old. So they are now maturing. We've never gone through that before. We think, golly, they've been here a long time. But when you look back at the history of Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, you look back at the one-room schoolhouse that was there, you look at Warner Baptist, which was, 1887, I think, was the first service there. And then you look at some of the vestiges of when you drive through the community. There isn't really a street there anymore, but we made sure there's still a street sign that says Shepherd Street. And there are a couple of others and people say, what was that? Well, it's important to the history that we maintain at least some recognition of those kinds of situations. I was talking to the new director of the Fairfax County Human Rights Commission. He has just joined the county staff, and of course Sid Holland was one of the founding members of the Human Rights Commission. And Mr. Saunders was telling me about, he's African American, he grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and his family used to drive down to visit family in the South. And he said, we always drove at night. We just figured, he never knew why he only drove at night, but his father would only drive him at night. And I thought, well, okay, not as much traffic, you got a full day's work in before you got on the road. Well, and he explained to me that, and he had to ask his father, why did you never drive at night? And he told me also that as an adult, he just always felt more comfortable driving at night. Well, the reason he drove at night was, as an African American, he wouldn't be seen as much. And I thought, oh my goodness, those of us who haven't experienced that have no clue. And it's only when we have friends or acquaintances that can tell us these stories that we suddenly say, oh, now I understand. Now I understand. That's deadly serious stuff. It may have been sort of family lore, but it's deadly serious. It says something about society. And that just happened about 3 days ago, and I just went, wow. Never would have thought about that, and yet people in our diverse community are living that kind of stuff every day. So maintaining our grasp of history, maintaining our connections to our current families who are maintaining their connections to the past, so very important. There is a historic house. It hasn't been declared historic, but I think in the community it seems to be historic. On Lacey Boulevard, it is it Elise Polk's grandmother's house? I'm never quite sure how the family connections work.
On Munson.
It's right there next to the Lacey Grocery. And I never noticed it.
That was
Lillian Carey's house.
house.
Lillian Carey's house, and Lillian Carey was Elise's.
No. She was the principal and teacher of everybody in Baylor.
Yes.
I guess then it was. Then the Lillian Carey school sits on property. That's where I was.
The house next to the store.
Yes.
Was owned by Lillian Carey.
Okay.
And she was a teacher and principal for the school in Mount Pleasant and the 3-room school that was in Baylor's Crossroads that I said that was torn down in 1948. And that probably was bought by Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Yeah.
Back when, before I was born probably. And their descendants own that now. Now, where the Lillian Carey School is situated, which is across from where I live, that property originally was owned by John Bell.
Yes, and that's all the part of the Bell estate.
Right.
But that house that's on Lacey Boulevard next to
the
store, I only learned about recently. I mean, I've been by there a million times.
Yeah,
never really paid too much attention to it. But there is a sense in the community that maybe because the house really hasn't had much done to it. I mean,
the porch.
It's both the same.
It looks very much the same.
Same as it was all
and
my life.
so there's some sense that maybe, how do you get to make that declared a historic place? The community is going to have to, the family and the community are going to have to do some work on that. But that's an example of still existing a location that has some real importance. It hasn't been bulldozed, hasn't been changed. It's pretty much the way it was at the time.
That is all the time.